Admiral Zextol's crystalline tailtips clinked softly against the polished deck of the Varsidian flagship Starseeker. The sound echoed through the observation chamber, mixing with the gentle hum of quantum arrays and detection equipment that lined the walls in elegant spirals. Their latest deep space survey had revealed something unusual, something that made his scaled ridges rise with anticipation. "Display the anomaly," he commanded, his voice carrying the musical tones typical of his species. The chamber's holographic core shimmered to life, projecting a perfect representation of a blue-green planet suspended in the void. Earth. Senior analyst Niram stepped forward, her iridescent scales reflecting the hologram's light. "The readings are conclusive, Admiral. This world hosts a civilization advanced enough to harness fusion power, maintain orbital installations, and modify their atmospheric composition at will." Yet, she paused, mandibles clicking in confusion. "Continue," Zextol encouraged, already suspecting what troubled his analyst. "They're silent, Admiral. Completely, utterly silent." Niram manipulated the display, bringing up spectrum after spectrum of empty readings. No quantum communications, no faster-than-light signals, not even primitive tachyon bursts. By all measures, they should be reaching out into the cosmos, yet they maintain total silence. The Admiral circled the hologram, studying the planet's features. City lights sparkled across its dark side, artificial satellites moved in precise orbits, and energy signatures indicated robust industrial activity. All signs of a thriving civilization, yet one that seemed oddly content with its solar isolation. Perhaps their technological development followed an unusual path, suggested Commander Vexlar, the ship's tactical officer. His battle-scarred scales told stories of countless first-contact scenarios. Some species take centuries to discover basic quantum principles. Zextol flicked his tail dismissively. "No, look at their energy usage patterns. They understand advanced physics. This silence is deliberate." He zoomed the display to focus on a cluster of orbital structures. "What do our preliminary assessments suggest about their defensive capabilities?" Niram consulted her data crystal. "Minimal, based on observable infrastructure. We detect no shield generators, no graviton arrays, no dark matter manipulators. Their orbital platforms appear to be primarily civilian in nature. Communication relays, weather monitors, and primitive observation equipment. A species that chose isolation," Commander Vexlar mused, "or one that never learned to reach beyond their cradle." The Admiral's facial scales shifted in what his crew recognized as amusement. Either way, the Eternal Empire will welcome them into the greater galactic community. Their world shows promise, resources, habitable conditions, and a population already familiar with advanced technology. They'll make an excellent addition to our protectorate systems. He turned to his tactical officer. "Prepare a standard first contact package. We'll approach with full ceremonial display. Let them see the glory of our city and civilization before we present our terms. Mark their system as a Priority 3 acquisition." Priority 3? Niram's scales rippled with surprise. That's unusually low for a world of this development level. A civilization that maintains such silence lacks the confidence to reach for the stars, Zextol explained, his tone carrying the weight of centuries of experience. "They'll recognize the futility of resistance when faced with our superior technology. This will be a simple integration." As his officers departed to carry out their orders, Admiral Zextol remained in the observation chamber, studying the silent planet. Something about Earth nagged at his instincts, like a shadow glimpsed in deep space. He dismissed the feeling. After all, his species had overseen the integration of dozens of worlds, and Earth showed every sign of being among the easiest. In the hologram, Earth continued its quiet rotation, its silence masking secrets that would soon shatter the Admiral's certainty about his place in the cosmos. The Varsidian greeting fleet emerged from hyperspace in a dazzling display of light and energy, their ships arranged in the sacred crown of stars formation. 12 crystalline vessels surrounded the massive flagship Starseeker, their hulls refracting starlight in patterns that had inspired awe in countless civilizations. Begin the approach sequence. Admiral Zextel commanded from his central podium. Activate all ceremonial illumination arrays. Let them witness the majesty of the eternal empire. The fleet's exterior crystals pulsed with rhythmic waves of color, transforming the ships into a stellar ballet visible even from Earth's surface. It was a display that had brought primitive species to their knees in religious fervor and made advanced civilizations pause in appreciation. Senior analyst Nira monitored her instruments with growing concern. Admiral were detecting no changes in their orbital traffic patterns. Civilian satellites maintained their original courses. Their space stations continue routine operations. Impossible. Commander Vexlar's battle-scarred scales flickered with agitation. They must see us. Our arrival signature alone should have triggered every sensor in their system. Zextel's tail twitched thoughtfully. Begin the standard greeting broadcast. All frequencies, all known communication protocols. The message rang out across space in hundreds of languages, each carefully crafted to convey both the Empire's power and benevolence. People of Earth, we come as representatives of the Varsidian Eternal Empire, bearers of cosmic civilization. Your world has been chosen for integration into our grand alliance. Accept our guidance, and we shall lift you from your isolation into the greater galactic community. Minutes passed. Earth's cities continued their normal patterns of light and dark. Satellites traced their predictable paths. Human communication signals maintained their usual chaotic dance across the electromagnetic spectrum. Still no response, Nirim reported, her scales now a pale shade of confusion. They continue their regular transmissions as if we don't exist. Admiral Zextel rose from his command podium, his massive frame casting complex shadows in the crystal-reflected light. Perhaps a demonstration is in order. Target the large desert region in their northern hemisphere. Minimal yield, precision strike. Show them we can reach out and touch their world with ease. A single kinetic projectile launched from the Star Seeker, its path calculated to impact the empty Sahara Desert. The weapon streaked toward Earth's atmosphere, a visible reminder of the Empire's reach. At precisely 100,000 kilometers from Earth's surface, the projectile vanished. Not exploded, not deflected, simply ceased to exist. The observation chamber erupted in chaos. Weapon loss confirmed. Vexlar barked. No debris, no energy signature, no residual radiation. It's as if it entered a void. Impossible? Nirim whispered, her scales now white with shock. Our sensors detect no defense grid, no energy barriers, no. Silence. Admiral Zextel's command cut through the panic. His outer scales had darkened to a deep purple of concentration. Initiate full spectrum analysis. I want to know exactly what we're dealing with. New sensor arrays deployed from the fleet, probing the space around Earth with every detection method known to Varsidian science. The results defied explanation. There was simply nothing there. No defense screens, no weapon platforms, no technological barrier of any kind. Yet their projectile was gone. Admiral, Commander Vexlar's voice carried an edge his crew had never heard before. I recommend we withdraw to a safe distance and request guidance from the High Command. This level of technology, if they can hide their defenses so completely. No. Zextel's tail struck the deck with a sharp crack. We are representatives of the Eternal Empire. We do not retreat from silence. His scales shifted to the deep red of resolution. Prepare the main fleet for arrival. If Earth wishes to play games of silence, we shall respond with the full voice of Empire. As the fleet maintained its position, Earth continued its serene rotation below, and in the void between, something unseen watched, measured, and waited. Deep beneath the lunar surface, in a chamber that officially didn't exist, Director Sarah Chen watched the holographic display of the Varsidian fleet with quiet satisfaction. Dozens of other officers sat at their stations around her, their faces illuminated by the soft blue glow of quantum interfaces. None of them spoke. None of them needed to. Sarah felt the subtle pulse of the neural mesh interface at the base of her skull, humanity's greatest achievement and best-kept secret. Through it, she experienced the thoughts and observations of every officer in the room, each consciousness adding to a symphony of silent coordination. They took the bait, thought Colonel James Rodriguez, his mental signature tinged with amusement, just like the simulations predicted. Sarah acknowledged his observation with a subtle mental nudge. The Varsidians' reaction to their missing projectile played perfectly into humanity's strategy. Through the mesh network, she accessed the vast sensor web stretching across the solar system. Billions of quantum-entangled particles, each smaller than an atom, yet linked into the most sophisticated detection grid ever created. Fleet Admiral Hassan is requesting consensus on Phase 2, came the thought from her tactical officer. Sarah turned her attention to the strategic overlay. The Varsidian ships hung in space like brilliant jewels, completely unaware that they were surrounded by a net of human sensors and weapon platforms, all invisible to conventional detection. Dr. Emily Wong, their chief scientist, shared a complex burst of technical data. Their shield harmonics match our database exactly. The targeting solutions are ready. Sarah allowed herself a small smile. 20 years ago, humanity had made a discovery that changed everything. Faster-than-light communications were fundamentally flawed. Any signal sent through hyperspace could be detected, tracked, and most importantly, predicted. The galaxy's civilizations had built their entire infrastructure on a foundation that might as well have been made of glass. Instead of following the same path, Earth chose silence. They developed the quantum mesh network, a system that used entangled particles for instantaneous, untraceable communication. While other species shouted their presence across the cosmos, humanity whispered in frequencies no one else could hear. Through the mesh, Sarah accessed centuries of accumulated data. The Varsidians weren't the first alien species humanity had encountered. They weren't even the 10th. For over 100 years, Earth had been watching, learning, and preparing. Silent ships slipped through the galaxy, gathering intelligence. Quantum probes mapped empire boundaries and fleet movements. Earth knew everything about them, while they knew nothing of Earth's true capabilities. The second wave of their fleet has entered hyperspace, reported the strategic AI through the mesh. Estimated arrival in 6 hours. Sarah opened a secure channel to the defense platforms hidden throughout the solar system. Thousands of automated weapons platforms acknowledged her connection, each one powered by technology that violated what the Varsidians considered possible. No radioactive emissions, no energy signatures, just the elegant application of quantum mechanics that Earth had mastered decades ago. Launch the ghost drones, she commanded through the mesh. Throughout the solar system, invisible sensors tracked the microscopic machines as they infiltrated the Varsidian ships, mapping every system, every weakness, every potential threat. In the physical world, Sarah finally spoke aloud, her voice soft in the quiet chamber. Send word to the council. Tell them the Varsidians have played their part perfectly. We can begin the real demonstration. As her words echoed in the lunar chamber, she felt the collective anticipation of her crew through the mesh. For centuries, humanity had been dismissed as primitive, ignored as insignificant, or marked as easy prey. Species like the Varsidians saw Earth's silence as weakness, never realizing that true power had no need to announce itself. The time had come to show the galaxy why silence was the deadliest sound of all. Admiral Zexitl paced the crystalline deck of the Star Seeker, his scales shifting between shades of deep purple and agitated red. The main Varsidian battle fleet would arrive within the hour, bringing enough firepower to subdue a dozen worlds. Yet something about Earth's continued silence made his ancestral instincts scream warnings. Multiple hyperspace signatures detected. Senior analyst Niram's voice carried notes of confusion. But this is impossible. Space rippled around the Varsidian fleet. Where there had been nothing but void moments before, ships now existed. Human ships. They simply appeared as if they had always been there, waiting for the right moment to shed their invisibility. Tactical analysis. Zextal demanded, his tail lashing against the deck. Commander Vexlar's battle-scarred scales had paled to an ashen gray. Count exceeds 200 vessels, varying sizes. No energy emissions. No thermal signatures. No engine output. They're just there. The human ships were unlike anything in the Varsidian database. Their hulls seemed to drink in light rather than reflect it, making them look like three-dimensional shadows against the stars. They moved with impossible grace, requiring no visible means of propulsion. They're surrounding us in a spiral pattern, Nurim reported, her claws dancing across her console. But I'm detecting no coordination signals between their vessels. No command broadcasts. No tactical updates. It's as if they're all one organism. Zextal finished, watching the display with growing unease. The human ships moved in perfect synchronization, each vessel anticipating the other's actions without any detectable communication. A new signature appeared on their sensors, a single human vessel, smaller than the others, approaching the Starseeker with deliberate slowness. As it drew closer, the Varsidians could see its hull was different from the others. Instead of drinking light, it seemed to bend it, creating patterns that drew the eye in impossible directions. Admiral, Commander Vexlar's voice was tight with tension. Our targeting systems can't establish a lock. The targeting computers say there's nothing there, even though we can see them with our own eyes. Through the quantum mesh network, Director Sarah Chen watched the Varsidians' confusion with clinical interest. The fleet's response matched their psychological profiles perfectly, a mixture of arrogance, disbelief, and growing fear as they confronted something beyond their understanding. Begin Phase 3, she commanded silently. Across the solar system, human ships initiated their next set of movements. They weren't just ships, but nodes in the vast quantum network, each one amplifying and extending humanity's reach. Inside the Varsidian flagship, systems began to behave strangely. Display crystals showed impossible readings. Navigation computers reported contradictory positions. The very fabric of their technology seemed to be turning against them. "We're being invaded," Nurim whispered, her scales now white with shock. "Something's in our systems, but there's no data breach, no cyber attack, nothing we can detect or fight." The truth was both simpler and more terrifying. The ghost drones Sarah had deployed earlier had mapped every circuit, every crystal, every quantum pathway in the Varsidian ships. Now, through the quantum mesh, humanity could speak directly to the Varsidians' technology in its own language. Now, thought Sarah, show them what true power looks like. Every weapon system on every Varsidian ship simultaneously powered down, not through force or destruction, but through elegant manipulation of their own operating protocols. The mighty warships of the Eternal Empire hung in space, their crystalline teeth and claws gently but firmly blunted. The small human ship finally reached speaking distance with the Starseeker. When its message came, it wasn't through any normal communication channel. Instead, the words appeared directly on the Varsidian bridge's main crystal, as if the ship's own systems had decided to speak. "Now that we have your attention, shall we discuss the true meaning of silence?" Grand Marshal HFY emerged from hyperspace at the head of the Varsidian Empire's main battle fleet, 2,000 ships strong. Their arrival lit up the solar system like a new constellation, a declaration of power meant to overwhelm any resistance. The Marshal's flagship, Crystal Mandate, dwarfed even Admiral Zextal's Starseeker. Report status, HFY commanded, her ceremonial armor chiming softly as she moved. The response she received from Zextal's fleet sent ripples of pale yellow through her scales, the color of deep concern. "The humans," Admiral Zextal's voice carried an unfamiliar tremor. "They're not what we thought." Before HFY could demand clarification, her tactical officer's voice cut through the command deck. "Multiple contacts. They're everywhere." The space around the Varsidian armada shimmered like heat waves rising from desert sand. human vessels emerged from their quantum shrouds, not in dozens or hundreds, but thousands. They moved like schools of deep-sea predators, their formations flowing and shifting in ways that defied traditional space combat doctrine. In her lunar command center, Director Sarah Chen felt the combined consciousness of Earth's fleet pilots through the quantum mesh. Each ship was an extension of its pilot's will, guided by both individual skill and collective awareness. No orders needed to be given. No tactics needed to be explained. Through the mesh, every human pilot knew their role in the greater dance. "Impossible," Grand Marshal Kexexi whispered, watching the tactical display. "No fleet can coordinate like this without communication signals. No ships can move with such precision without constant tactical updates." But the human ships did exactly that. When the Varsidian fleet launched its first volley of energy weapons, the human vessels flowed around the attacks like water around stones. Not a single shot found its target. There was no last-second dodging, no desperate evasion. The human ships were simply never where the Varsidian weapons fired. Through the mesh, Sarah directed humanity's response. They had no intention of destroying the Varsidian fleet. That would be wasteful. Instead, they demonstrated something far more profound: complete mastery of the battlefield. Human ships darted between Varsidian formations, their presence disrupting carefully planned maneuvers. Quantum fields rippled through space, creating zones where Varsidian weapons refused to fire and engines struggled to function. The entire battle was less a fight and more an elaborate demonstration. Marshal. The Crystal Mandate's tactical officer's scales had turned pure white. 3 human vessels just passed directly through our forward shields. Not penetrated. Passed through, as if the barriers didn't exist. Kexixi's own scales rippled with disbelief as she watched the impossible scene unfold. The human ships moved with casual disregard for what she had always thought were the fundamental laws of space combat. They ignored shield frequencies, weapon ranges, and even basic physics. In the quantum mesh, Sarah felt a subtle shift in the collective consciousness of her fleet. The pilots were creating new maneuvers on the fly, learning and adapting as one unified entity. Tactics that had never been planned or practiced emerged spontaneously from their shared awareness. "They're not just coordinating," Grand Marshal Kexixi realized, her voice heavy with revelation. "They're evolving. Every move we make, every tactic we try, they adapt and improve in real time." The final demonstration came when a group of human ships surrounded a Varsidian heavy cruiser. Instead of attacking, they created a complex geometric pattern of quantum fields. The cruiser's crystal hull began to sing, resonating with frequencies that made its crew's scales tingle. The message was clear: the humans could affect Varsidian technology on its most fundamental level. Grand Marshal Kexixi, veteran of 100 campaigns, winner of the 7 Systems War, felt something she had never experienced in her centuries of service: the absolute certainty that she was outmatched in every possible way. The humans had not just mastered silence, they had transcended the very need for it. Grand Marshal Kexexi stood in the Crystal Mandate's Strategic Command Center, watching emergency reports flood in from across Varsidian space. Her scales had settled into a deep blue of resignation as she realized the true scope of humanity's influence. Another outpost has gone silent in the Centauri sector, her communications officer reported. Same pattern as the others, all systems functional, but completely under external control. Through the quantum mesh network, Director Sarah Chen orchestrated humanity's revelation. Like flowers blooming in spring, hidden human installations activated throughout Varsidian territory. Each one had been established years ago, invisible to the Empire's most sophisticated detection systems. "Show me the pattern again," Kexixi commanded. The holographic display updated, showing the spread of human influence across Varsidian space. It wasn't random. The human outposts formed an intricate geometric pattern, each one positioned with mathematical precision. Sarah smiled as she felt the Varsidians beginning to understand. The outposts weren't just listening posts or hidden bases. They were nodes in the vast quantum mesh, extending humanity's silent network across the galaxy. Each one strengthened the whole, creating a web of awareness that nothing could hide from. Marshal, Admiral Zextel's voice carried across the quantum channel. The humans have demonstrated control over our defense platforms in the Rigel sector. They didn't hack them or override them. The systems responded to them as if they were our own controllers. The truth was more elegant than the Varsidians could imagine. Over decades, human quantum engineers had studied the Empire's technology, learning to speak its language at the deepest level. The ghost drones had mapped every circuit, every crystal lattice, every quantum state. Now, humanity could communicate with Varsidian systems more fluently than their creators. In her lunar command center, Sarah accessed a special partition of the quantum mesh. "Initiate Protocol Lighthouse," she commanded. Across Varsidian space, seemingly ordinary stars began to pulse with subtle quantum signatures, navigation beacons that had been placed years ago, waiting for this moment. Marshal. The Crystal Mandate's sensor officer's scales had turned almost translucent with shock. The anomalies we detected in the Betelgeuse trade route last year, they weren't sensor ghosts. They were human ships hiding in plain sight. Kexexa watched as the tactical display revealed the true extent of human presence in her empire. Trading vessels that had visited Varsidian ports contained quantum cores that gathered intelligence. Civilian stations harbored dormant human technology. Even the space between stars had been seeded with microscopic quantum sensors. "They've been everywhere," she whispered, "watching, learning, preparing. Every time we dismissed an anomaly, every time we ignored an unexplained reading." Through the mesh, Sarah felt the satisfaction of her fellow commanders as years of patience finally paid off. Humanity had never been trapped in their solar system. They had chosen to stay silent, using their quantum technology to explore and prepare while remaining invisible. A new alert caught Kexexi's attention. The Empire's most secure military database was accessing itself, its crystal matrices resonating with quantum frequencies that matched human patterns. Files began to open, displaying information about fleet movements, weapon specifications, and tactical doctrine. "They're not stealing the data," her technical advisor realized, scales shifting to green with wonder. "They already have it. They're showing us that they've had access all along." In the Lunar Command Center, Sarah initiated the final phase of the revelation. Throughout Varsidian space, quantum cores activated in their hidden places. The Empire's own communication networks began to carry new signals transmitted through pathways that had existed undetected within the crystal matrices. Humanity had not just infiltrated the Varsidian Empire. They had rebuilt it from within, weaving their quantum mesh through its very foundation. Every crystal, every circuit, every quantum pathway had been silently prepared for this moment. The message was clear. The silent ones had never been silent at all. They had simply been speaking a language too sophisticated for anyone else to hear. A single human ship emerged from quantum space near the Varsidian throne world, Crystallos Prime. Unlike the shadowy vessels of Earth's fleet, this one shimmered with an inner light that played across its hull in complex patterns. The ship's design spoke of artistry as much as technology, its form suggesting harmony rather than dominance. In the Royal Observation Chamber, Emperor Vexteri watched its approach with his council of advisors. The Emperor's scales rippled with colors that hadn't been seen in the royal court for millennia, the deep gold of profound change. They could have struck at any time, Grand Marshal Kexixi observed, her battle-worn scales now a thoughtful shade of blue. Our defenses, our fleets, our most secure installations, they had access to everything. And yet they waited. Emperor Vexteri finished the thought. The question is, why? Through the quantum mesh network, Director Sarah Chen prepared for humanity's first official contact with the Varsidian leadership. The diplomatic vessel Starlight Dialogue carried a carefully chosen crew of Earth's finest minds, scientists, diplomats, and cultural experts who had studied Varsidian civilization for decades. "Your Radiance," A junior advisor's scales flickered with urgency. The human vessel is transmitting. But it's using the royal family's private quantum frequency, the one that's been encrypted in the throne world's crystal matrix for 10,000 years. The Emperor's own scales shifted to pale gold, surprise tinged with admiration. The message appeared directly in the crystal walls of the observation chamber, forming words in perfect High Varsidian script. We come not as conquerors, but as students who have completed their studies. We have learned your songs. Now we wish to teach you ours. Sarah felt the ripple of appreciation through the quantum mesh as the Varsidian leadership recognized the deeper meaning in the message. Humanity had mastered not just Varsidian technology, but their culture, their language, their very way of thinking. The Starlight Dialogue continued its approach, each movement a calculated display of respect for Varsidian spatial protocols. As it neared the throne world's crystal spires, the ship began to emit quantum harmonics that made the entire city sing with resonant frequencies. Beautiful, whispered one of the elder council members, their scales shimmering with emotion. They understand the song of arrival, not just the notes, but the meaning behind them. Emperor Vexteri rose from his crystal throne, his scales now showing the deep purple of decision. They could have destroyed us. Instead, they chose to learn from us, to understand us. He turned to his council. Perhaps it is time we learned from them as well. Through the quantum mesh, Sarah initiated the final phase of first contact. The Starlight Dialogue extended crystalline appendages that matched the architecture of the royal docking spires perfectly. The ship wasn't just arriving, it was integrating itself into the very structure of Varsidian civilization, literally and symbolically. Your Radiance, Grand Marshal Keksexi stepped forward, her scales now showing the green of insight. I believe I understand their strategy now. They didn't need our surrender because they never intended to fight. They didn't need our submission because they sought something far more valuable. Understanding, the Emperor completed her thought. They wanted to know us, to truly comprehend us, not to conquer, but to connect. As the Starlight Dialogue completed its docking procedure, Sarah prepared to leave the Lunar Command Center for the first time since the operation began. Through the quantum mesh, she felt the readiness of her diplomatic team. They had spent years preparing for this moment, learning every nuance of Varsidian culture and protocol. The time had come to show the galaxy that true power lay not in the ability to destroy, but in the wisdom to understand. Earth's silence had never been about hiding. It had been about listening, learning, and preparing for this moment of perfect harmony. 1 year after first contact, the Grand Crystal Spires of Crystallos Prime hosted a gathering unprecedented in galactic history. Representatives from 100 spacefaring civilizations converged on the Varsidian throne world, drawn by rumors of a revolution in interstellar relations. Director Sarah Chen stood beside Emperor Vexteri on the crystal podium, their contrasting forms, one human, one Varsidian, symbolizing the new era they had created together. Through the quantum mesh network, she felt the collective anticipation of both her human colleagues and their new Varsidian partners. The galaxy stands at a crossroads. Emperor Vexteri began, his scales shimmering with the royal gold of proclamation. For millennia, we believed that power meant being heard across the stars. Today, we know better. Sarah stepped forward, her neural interface subtly adjusting the quantum harmonics of the crystal chamber to enhance the Emperor's words. The gathered diplomats watched in wonder as the very walls seemed to sing with meaning. Humanity taught us the power of silence, the Emperor continued. Not the silence of ignorance or isolation, but the silence of understanding. They showed us that true strength lies not in broadcasting our presence, but in learning to listen. Through the quantum mesh, Sarah shared the combined knowledge of human and Varsidian scientists. Holographic displays materialized throughout the chamber, showing the flaws in traditional faster-than-light communication. Every transmission, every quantum burst, every tachyon pulse created ripples in spacetime that any sufficiently advanced civilization could detect and exploit. But there is another way. Sarah spoke for the first time, her words carried by crystal resonance. The quantum mesh network that humanity developed isn't just a communication system. It's a new way of thinking about our place in the cosmos. The chamber's crystals shifted, displaying the elegant mathematics behind human quantum technology. The gathered representatives saw how the mesh used entangled particles to create untraceable, instantaneous links across vast distances. More importantly, they saw how it could be integrated with their own technologies. "We offer this knowledge freely," Emperor Vexteri declared, his scales now showing the deep purple of sincerity. "The Varsidian Empire will no longer seek to dominate through force or intimidation. Instead, we will help guide the galaxy toward a more enlightened future." Sarah felt a subtle shift in the quantum mesh as new connections formed. Throughout the chamber, representatives from different species activated the quantum cores they had been given. One by one, they experienced the silent symphony of shared consciousness that humanity had mastered. "This is not just technology," Sarah explained, watching understanding dawn in alien eyes. "It's a philosophy, a way of existing in harmony with the universe and each other. When we learn to listen more than we speak, to understand more than we declare, we discover potential we never knew existed." The demonstration reached its peak as the quantum mesh extended beyond the chamber, connecting with nodes throughout the galaxy. The assembled diplomats saw their own worlds from a new perspective, not as isolated points of light shouting into the void, but as parts of an intricate, interconnected web. "The age of cosmic noise is ending," Emperor Vexteri announced. "The time has come for a deeper understanding." As the gathering drew to a close, Sarah reflected on humanity's journey. They had turned their greatest perceived weakness into their greatest strength. Their silence hadn't been a limitation. It had been the key to transcending the old ways of thinking. Through the quantum mesh, she felt the ripples of change spreading across the galaxy. Species that had once competed now found ways to cooperate. Technologies that had been weapons became tools for understanding. The cosmic symphony was transforming from a chaos of competing voices into a harmony of shared consciousness. Earth's silence had never been about hiding or withdrawing. It had been about waiting for the right moment to show the galaxy a better way. In choosing to listen rather than shout, to understand rather than dominate, humanity had changed the very nature of civilization among the stars.